Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Across the Ocean. We are back. This is the show on YouTube, podcast style, for lovers of underwater image making. My name's James in Miami.
And this is Matthias, straight from Zurich.
And we get together on a monthly basis to give you our hints and tips from a lifetime spent creating underwater imagery. And we've had a couple of months off, buddy. This is the first one of 2022. So great to see your face and catch up with you. How has everything been? How's your year so far?
Hi James. It's been great. It's been too long actually that we haven't had these talks and that we haven't had a chance to just exchange our thoughts and what is happening around the individual fields that we're in. My year has been very busy so far. I've been doing a lot of client work, unfortunately mostly on land and not underwater, but this is hopefully gonna change very soon again. What about you? How has your year started? What have you been up to?
Good.
Sure.
Super busy teaching, technical diving, recreational diving, back to back with students. So I needed that couple of months, and thank you for allowing us to take this sabbatical and just sort of get our projects done. But couldn't be happier to be back making this show with you as always. And we're moving on to talk about more sort of travel and destination related topics in the coming videos, particularly when it comes to taking our camera gear on a road and some of our favorite places, including today where we're going to be giving you our top three places, destinations each for budget traveling. So in other words, where can you get the best bang for your buck as a scuba diver in terms of destinations? Now, we should probably pre-qualify this video by saying we're not going to include accommodation, cost of living, and flights in this because obviously if you live in the US, then getting to the Caribbean is relatively cheap. If you live in Europe, it costs more. Obviously, if you want to go to Egypt, it's a lot easier to do that from Europe than it is from the US. So this show goes out around the world, so we're not going to count like cost of flights because obviously, any destination can be remote to anybody depending on where you're based. And also, if you're in an Airbnb versus a 5-star hotel, well, that's your personal choice and we're not really including that. We really just want to talk to you about our places where we feel our dive dollars, the cost of diving, really goes the furthest. Would you agree with that, Matthias?
Absolutely, yeah, I think that's what this video is all about, and as you said very nicely yourself before, you can always choose how fancy or how basic you want to stay in a certain place, but for the diving there's not really much that you can do to reduce the cost, so that's what we want to focus in this video on.
Yeah, absolutely. So why don't you kick it off with your top three destinations, Matthias? I know you've got some bangers on your list there.
Pleasure. All right, so the first one that I've got on my list is Bonaire Island in the Caribbean. This is a destination that I've been to a couple of times, and the reason why I think this is such a great value for money is simply because you can dive pretty much all around the island directly from the shore. Most dive centers, most places will offer you rental cars, so you just basically hire out a truck. You get a unlimited sort of air package which supplies you with unlimited air fills throughout the time that you're spending there. You can just load them up onto your truck and off you go, and you've got a huge variety of different dive sites, of different things that you can dive at, whether it be wrecks, reefs. The salt pier is very famous in Bonaire and one of my absolute favorite dives there. And it's very, very easy and important for this episode, obviously very cost effective as well, because the diving itself is not very expensive. There is places that will cost you a lot of money when you stay in Bonaire Island, but the diving itself is fairly cheap and just very diverse, and that's why I like it so much.
How much would you pay for a week of diving? Say you want to do 2 or 3 shore dives a day. What's that going to set you back?
You're probably going to look at somewhere around $400 for a week of diving. So that's 5 days of unlimited shore diving. Yes, you do need to get a truck. That's not included in that price, I think. But that's actually quite reasonable, and it's not limited to 2 or 3 dives a day. You can do as many as you like. You can do 2 dives in the morning, you can have a break, you can do 2 more dives in the afternoon, and even get a night dive done. So up to 5 dives is quite reasonable, as long as you don't, do the first dive in the very south of the island, then the second on the very north, and keep wasting too much time running around or driving around the island. But I do think that that's quite a reasonable price for the type of diving that you can get there, and also the amount that you can get in within a week. Talking about Bonaire, I want to use this opportunity, James, if you allow me, to just quickly mention that I am actually going to be going back to Bonaire Island in the end of April, and myself and Sebastian, we're going to be hosting our very first on-location live underwater videography workshop there on Bonaire Island. We still have a few last spots left on that workshop and on that trip. We'll put the details to the trip down in the video description below, so if any of you guys want to learn more about underwater videography, kind of in a first-hand and live workshop on Bonaire Island, check out the details and let us know if you want to join us on that workshop.
That's a fantastic opportunity. The people that go on that trip are going to be very lucky. It's, learning from the master firsthand. Absolutely awesome. Absolutely awesome.
And it's not just about learning or improving your underwater videography skills. We're also going to have a ton of different underwater imaging equipment with us, so you guys get into the pleasure of trying out different cameras, different lights, different housings, and just see what fits your needs the best, even before deciding on what you might want to upgrade to in the future when it comes to filming underwater.
That's super cool. What a great opportunity. All right, what would your second destination be?
My second destination would be Egypt. Egypt for the reason that you have some really, really cool shore diving in basically all around the areas that offer diving. Pretty much every resort has an own house reef, and these house reef dives are very reasonably priced. Again, you can get weekly dive packages that will cover 5 days of diving on the house reef. So again, same as in Bonaire, you can dive as much as you want during that time. And the diving is really, really good. I still consider Egypt to be one of the best places to dive. And particularly when it comes to the shore diving, it is just, you can just drop into the water. It's normally very clear water most of the time, nice and warm, and you can, I've swam or dived with dolphins, with you call them manatees, but we call them dugongs, on the house reefs there in certain spots. So the diving really is top notch, and it is very, very affordable at the same time.
They are biologically slightly different, dugongs and manatees.
They are, okay.
I can't remember what the differences are, but I do know that they are slightly different species of the same type of sea potato.
Okay, well, see, I thought they only just speak a different language, but apparently that's not the only difference.
As well. But yeah, I can't remember what it is now. My knowledge on that, I have to look up. If you know, let us know in the comments below. Otherwise, I'm going to have to research it for sure.
Please do. Well, fantastic. Thank you, James, for that. I've already learned something on today's episode, which is great. It's not just something for you guys to take something home. We also do the same thing here. Excellent.
Okay, cool. So we have Bonaire, we have Egypt, two fantastic places to get a good bang for your buck when it comes to diving. What's your third selection?
And my third and last one is going to be the Philippines. The Philippines, again, very, very reasonable when it comes to the diving packages that you can get there. Also, you might notice that all of the destinations that I've mentioned, they all offer shore diving and very accessible and good shore diving. And it's the same with the Philippines as well. Here, a lot of the dive centers or the hotels, the resorts will have their private own house reef. And this really is what makes diving, in my opinion, very affordable, that you don't need any additional transportation to get to the dive sites, that you can basically just put your stuff on in the dive center and, just basically drop into the water and you're right there at the dive site that you want to be in. And as I said, that applies to the Philippines as well. The Philippines, very similar to Egypt and to Bonaire, offer fantastic house reef diving. but it's slightly different, especially different to Egypt, I would say, because the house reefs, most of the time, you will get the small stuff there. So if you're someone who really loves the critters, the small stuff, the macro, filming or taking photos of macro stuff, then the Philippines, I would say, are even on top of my list when it comes to affordable dive destinations, especially in that macro area.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. So we got Bonaire, Egypt, and the Philippines. Now I've got to come up with 3 different places. All right. We can do that.
Did I take all the ones that you had on your list already?
No. Well, I mean, you make a good point about the shore diving. Shore diving is a great way to get more value on your dive destination wherever you are. So anywhere where there's good shore diving is a great way to add value into your dive trips and make your dive dollars just go that little bit further. So 100% support that. We did do a whole video shore diving on our channel, which we'll link above there somewhere. But yeah, no, I have 3 different destinations and for slightly different reasons. So we're gonna mix this up for the viewers here a little bit. I also went Southeast Asia for my number 1 destination in terms of value, which is Thailand. Thailand has, for me, the best value world-class diving in the world in terms of the cost of I thought about this in terms of how much do you pay for a 2-tank boat dive trip. And for me, I think in terms of the quality of diving versus the cost you pay, the value in diving in Thailand, at any of the sort of resort-focused, all-inclusive, include your diving, is sky high. I don't know anywhere else in the world that you'll get that kind of value where you're talking about, $40, $50, 2-tank dive, or even 3-tank dives. They throw in lunch, it's valet service, which I know I'm not a big fan of, but like if you want super easy, high value, high quality dives, for me, Thailand is my number 1 destination when I think about budget scuba travel. And again, yes, if you live in Europe, if you live in the US, it's a long haul flight, that's going to cost more money, but like I said, just for the sheer value of the diving itself and the quality, definitely put Thailand, Phuket, those kind of areas right up there at the top of my list for places that I've got the best value. Second on my list, I want to put the Bay Islands of Honduras. So Utila, Roatan, all those kind of places. For the same reason that you've got really high quality dives for not very much money. For me, I think that those islands have a great reputation with people in the know, but the prices aren't as high as other areas of the Caribbean. Certainly cost of living is a lot lower, but your price there for a 2-tank dive is somewhere in the sort of $50 to $60 range for boat dives. Again, these aren't shore dives particularly. Roatan, you've got a limited amount of shore diving. Utila, not so much. But the boats are normally quite economical. You can get out to the dive site super fast. It's not that far offshore. And you can get really, really good value for money. I'm actually going back to the Bay Islands at the end of May this year. And that's one of the things that attracts me there is I can go do a whole ton of diving, shoot footage for the channel for not a great deal of expense, so it's kind of convenient here. So very much like I said, Roatan and Utila. And then third on my list, I put the Bahamas. Bahamas has highly developed scuba tourism. They were one of the early out the doors places to attract specifically scuba divers to come and dive the amazing variety of diving that there is in the Bahamas themselves. Again, not a great deal of shore diving, so it kind of goes against the points that you made, but just a great place to go and get a ton of dives done for not very much money. Again, there's resort based where you get your accommodation, your meals and your diving all included, and basically if you commit to one of those and you work out the numbers as opposed to like a resort dive without diving anywhere else in the Caribbean, you're basically getting your accommodation and your meals package and drinks and whatever else they throw in, and the diving's almost free. So when you look at it like that and you package it together, you're kind of like, oh, well, basically it's like if I go and stay at this place and eat their food, I get to go diving for free every morning or every day. So those packages are definitely available, and that's definitely something that I've thought about extensively when it comes to sort of value for money, when it comes to how many dives can I do for the same amount of money that I would do a regular vacation. So I think that pretty much rounds out my list. And again, all the places we've listed, Egypt, the Philippines, Bonaire, the Bay Islands of Honduras, Thailand, and Bahamas are all world-class quality of diving. And I think that's important to mention as well. There may be places that it's cheaper to dive, but I think quality plays a part, because if you're going to go pay no money at all to do really bad dives, that's not very good value. I think it's got to be like the quality of the diving has to be high and the cost has to be low for it to be actually good value. That's my opinion. Well, buddy, it's great to be back. I'm so happy that we've reconnected and we've got this series back up and running again in 2022. Great to see your smiling face as always. What are we going to talk about on the next episode?
Well, in the next episode, we'll share with you our personal top 3 dive destinations, specifically when it comes to filming underwater.
Yeah, if you can't tell, Matthias and I are super hungry for travel. Like, you know, we're putting the whole pandemic behind us. We're making plans for the future. That's where our heads are at. And it's about getting back out there, shooting amazing content, and having awesome dive experiences in fantastic destinations. That's basically all we're focused on this year. I think, you know, you don't know this, but we actually started like this meeting about an hour before we roll cameras, and all we talk about is where we're going this year, what travel we're going to do, what we're going to shoot on, what gear we're going to take with us, all this kind of, like, we just talk about this stuff before the cameras are even rolling, and then we're like, yeah, I suppose we should record the episode now, and then that's basically how we kick things off. So great to see you again, buddy. Looking forward to seeing everyone on the next one. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us here on Across the Ocean. Again, my name is James in Miami.
And this is Matthias in Zurich.
We'll see you soon. Take care.
Bye-bye.